we're a minute delayed. Right? So we probably lost some 20 minutes.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Episode 14, I think, of 25 with Tech 25.
Bringing it home.
First show of the new year, now that I'm thinking about it.
Very exciting.
Due to a clerical error on my part. But, you know, we are back. So, and we're here to talk about a couple cool things. I'm Tim Higgins, Secretary for District 25.
I'm Chris Fano, Director of Technology for the district.
And today we wanted to talk to you about accessibility features. It's kind of actually one of the topics that comes up most in questions of people tend to hear about the fact that Apple stuff can do a lot of cool things in terms of accessibility, but it's not necessarily always clear where those features are.
And I think a lot of people, even when they see them, they think they only apply to a small subset of individuals with particular needs. But what we're trying to show today, and Tim can talk a little bit about, is a lot of these can be used by everybody to just improve your interface and your experience with your Mac or with your iPad.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people get sort of deterred by the term accessibility. It really is just a customization to make things work a little bit more the way you like to make them work. And so we're going to talk about a couple that I have a feeling are going to come in handy. But one of the other things that it's just good to be aware of is, from my experience in the building as tech support, especially on the middle school level or the older kids in elementary, when computers start acting kind of funny or look sort of strange, usually they've messed with an accessibility feature. So we might kind of show you how to undo some of those fun problems.
Yeah, so whether you're troubleshooting some of those or you're noticing a kid may be able to benefit on their machine or their experience, or it could be for you to, again, just improve the way that you're working with your equipment. We're going to run through a bunch of these today, start showing them on a Mac, jump over to the iPad if we have time to do so. But as Tim and I talked, really the biggest thing is that you kind of see where they're at and you see all of the different areas that it cover, and then you can go in and then explore them a little bit further as you have particular interests.
Totally. And so I think we're going to jump right in.
Yep.
And really the best place to be is going to be your best friend is going to be the system preferences in the Apple menu. So I'm going to share my screen here. And then I'm going to jump up here in the upper left-hand corner to our Apple menu to access our system preferences, where we will get the hopefully familiar system preferences pane. And what we are going to really draw our attention towards initially is the little guy inside of the blue circle. That is our accessibility feature menu. And if we click on that, we get all sorts of options. I'm going to start specifically with things on the display. And so that first option up here, all sort of things designed to help people who may be vision impaired. But, as we all get older, our eyesight gets a little bit less. And so even on that sort of a level, things can help. One in particular, cursor size. And I actually realized this as I was playing around, refamiliarizing myself with this. You can change how big your cursor shows up. I know that helps a lot of people in terms of your day-to-day. So you just grab this cursor scroller, bring it on over, and it makes it bigger, which I realize we probably should have been doing all season as long as we've done these shows to make it a little bit easier for you guys to see on the other side. But beyond things as simple as cursor are ways of inverting the color depending on what particular needs have to be met. So you can invert the color. This is one of the ones I was talking about where kids like to sort of mess with it. Inverting color, so if everything looks like it's the negative, that's the little accessibility feature. But even as simple as something, if you're working on your computer at night, or you feel like you're on your computer all the time and it's just so bright, sometimes I like to switch it back to this grayscale mode, and it's sort of, I don't know, it just takes a little bit of the harshness off of your eyes with the bright colors. It dulls the whites a little bit. And sort of to go along with that is also then our display contrast here. And we can either make things be in contrast against each other, make things a little bit, the whites brighter, or bring it down and sort of soften everything.
And this is becoming a big thing, not just on the Mac, but the latest beta version for iOS has something built in where it's going to know the sunlight and the time of day and will start to adjust the colors to have less of the blue and make more of the yellow and green to help people sleep. So this idea of really looking at what your display is like, how tired your eyes are, is a really important piece just for good overall health and feeling better about, especially those of us who are on our machine a lot.
Right, and absolutely, since we are, it's in a culture where we're just on the machines and on our devices all the time, that's one that definitely comes in handy. And so another thing within displays, because of our time of, the super high resolution, everything kind of appears to be kind of small. It makes just defaulted to have all of our icons are kind of little. And so one thing that you can do is if you come into your system preferences and under this displays section, you can also get to it from accessibility where I just was. But if you choose this scaled option, we get a whole bunch of numbers that look familiar in terms of buying TVs, in terms of its HD. But if I click on the 720p, we see that everything kind of blows up a little bit more. We lose that super high crisp resolution a bit, but it does make things a little bit bigger. It's an easy way to simply make things a little bit easier on your eyes in terms of looking at the icons, small text, things like that. This would also be the place you would come to if you have plugged your laptop into a projector to do a presentation somewhere, and things just aren't showing up on the projector right. You could come into this display section and change the way all of your icons and all your resolution is on the screen. And since we're talking about the size of objects, our second option here in accessibility is zoom. And there's a lot of really great zoom features. So if you don't want to jump your resolution way up, or way down rather, to make things bigger, you can actually zoom fairly easily as well. And so I've turned on, use this keyboard shortcut to zoom. And there's a couple actually what we call gestures as well that I'll talk about here in a second. So I'm going to bring up a web page. And so say I'm reading about the State of the Union, or any sort of text, and it just seems kind of small, or I'm looking at an image that seems really little. If I take my fingers on the trackpad, 2 fingers, lay them on the trackpad, and then sort of bring them away from each other or pinch them together, you can zoom in and out of things. So bringing your fingers apart from one another will zoom in. Pinching them back together will zoom out. And you can do that sort of basically anywhere on your screen. Another thing that we can do is, and we can see this as the setting that I just turned on, which is using keyboard shortcuts. This funny little squiggly icon is the option key, and then the goofy looking bow is our command key. And so if I do option, command, and plus, I can zoom in, and it'll always zoom in towards the cursor. And if I hold those same 2 and then hit the minus sign, which are the keys up in the upper right-hand corner next to delete, the plus and minus key, I can really quickly zoom in and out of all sorts of stuff to, investigate further what exactly I am looking at. So those are the zoom functions available here to be turned on in accessibility. Cool. And so then I'm going to hand it over to Chris for some more more audio-centric features.
Well, I want to go back because Tim, you reminded me of something neat in when you're looking at that web page. If I could go back here, I'm going to look at it actually in.
That should be in, if we open the Chrome, that should be down there.
Go back in here. So one of the things that I think is really important for people, especially who may be distracted by a lot of the images that are around or all of these advertisements, is that every web browser has a way to be able to strip away some of that stuff and look into it. Can I open a Safari browser? Mm-hmm. Open a new tab.
Just do a new window.
Okay. All right. So let's say we just go to a regular site here. So if we're in CNN and we open up one of their articles. And so this is a good example. They have a lot of text. They have a lot of things that are kind of like around that are getting distracting to the reader. Okay, you can't read about Powerball tonight. Probably a good example. This is why we.
But the smooth wall's working.
The smooth wall's filter. We got always
doing well.
And so what you can see is there are a lot of different advertisings and things that are around here. And what you could do in Safari, Chrome has an extension and Firefox has a way to do this as well. You'll see that there are these lines right next to this or to the URL window. And what it says when you roll over is show reader view. So right now you can see it's got a title, it's got all of these advertisements on the right-hand side. When we click on that, the reader view pops up along with the video that's playing in the background. But you can see it strips out all of that stuff. And so for some of our readers who have a difficult time paying attention, or they get distracted by some of the text, or they click off, this reader view is actually very helpful and a much easier experience than looking at it in this type of window. So that's one benefit that you can have. Again, Chrome has it as well. Firefox, you have to put an extension we can help you with. But the reader view, I think, is a very clean way to be able to take a look at the text. I'll throw that out of the way. So it's out of your way. Thank you. All right, one of the things that I think is my favorite is the idea of being able to dictate. We do it into our phone. We do it, on our iPad. And in the system preference menu, again, there is an option that you may not know about. It's called dictation and speech. And if you click on that particular, you'll see that you automatically come up with a couple options. And right now we have dictation turned on. And you can see that as I'm talking, the microphone is capturing the audio. And the shortcut here is that you press the function key twice. And so in any application that you'd be in, whether it's you're typing, you're putting in something into a web browser, or you're doing an email, you can hit the function key twice. And you'll see that a new icon has appeared and it's starting to get ready to record my voice. So when it gets ready and it's connected, you have to be connected to the internet. You can then dictate in things like notes, URLs, emails, text messages, right into your computer itself. So just know that this function is available on the Mac side as well. You have to go into this separate system preference to get it. The next one I just want to talk a little bit about is this text-to-speech. So in the same preference window, you have some settings about what happens when you do text-to-speech, which we'll take a look at in just a minute. First is about the voice. It defaults to this Alex voice.
Most people recognize me by my voice.
But you also have different choices that you can adjust to. You could actually go out and download more if you really wanted to. And then you could have things announced at certain times if you'd want, when certain alerts pop up. But this is where you can set the speaking rate and the actual voice that you want to hear. Where that gets beneficial is, again, if you have a student or yourself where you don't want to be able to read, you want them to be able to read along with a text, you can take text in almost any program, especially the ones that are from Apple. And when you highlight them,
I have to set the Control T.
Oh, Control T.
Yeah.
You can have a shortcut, or you can also have it in a drop-down where it will actually start to speak it for you.
Delivering his annual report to the nation, Obama did not name Republican 2016 candidates, but he took clear, implied shots at them nevertheless, particularly front-runner Donald Trump, as well as Sens.
You can also do this.
America's desk.
So you can turn that on and off with text. You can copy things from documents and be able to put them in TextEdit or in Word. It would be able to do that as well. So the text-to-speech is a really nice option, again, for read-alongs. But there's also one other thing I wanted to show you that it does, besides just read the text. So we can stay in here probably, and again, let's say I highlight this piece of text. Now, instead of doing it where we're going to have it speak it, what I want to do is go to here. If you go under the application menu, so here we're in Chrome, see where it says services. Okay, and you get all of these options. And we can do a new email with it if you wanted to. It's a little shortcut. But one that we really like is this idea that you can add it to iTunes as a spoken track. So whatever I have highlighted right now, it will take it, have the digital voice read it, and then save it as an audio file that you can go get in iTunes, listen to it on an iPod, or have a kid listen to it with their headphones. So this iTunes as a spoken track is a really neat option to take this text-to-speech to just another level, and you can save things out of your curriculum, out of textbooks, and be able to have it available for later. So the last thing that I just think is a fun thing before I'll turn it back over to Tim is the idea that if you listen to Alex talk, again, if we do this.
The president acknowledged that a torrent of change, technological advances, and economic dislocation
Listen for
has
him
left
breathing
many
in
Americans
between
fearful of the
sentences.
future and anxious as social structures that have underpinned the life of the nation for decades fray. But he urged them not to fall.
So you might not have heard that as clearly as we did here, but they're building into their language processors, like where they take a breath at the beginning of a sentence to make the pattern of reading more comfortable to the listeners, especially our students who start to then regulate with the speech pattern. So those are a couple things with dictation, text-to-speech, and then also that reader view that can help from an audio side, but also a visual side when you're processing a lot of information.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep.
And so I'm going to head back into our preferences pane. And so I think a big not even a frustration, but one of the things that it's always standard on all of the computers that you have are the cursor size that we want to change, but there's some other cursor or mouse trackpad settings that we can change around to better fit our needs. And so one is, I hope everybody at this point kind of knows the little shortcut, the little gesture for scrolling, which is if you take your just two fingers, any two, and put it on the trackpad of the laptop, or if you have an external trackpad if you're on a desktop computer, and just sort of softly, basically just hover, not even hover, but like go right across the top of the trackpad, up and down is how you would scroll, so you don't have to come all the way over here and grab. That's what's called or referred to as a gesture by Apple. And sort of the speed in which it scrolls and the direction that it goes when you actually move your fingers can all be changed from the preferences here. And so one that I want to do back in accessibility, down towards the bottom, there's a whole other section for mouse and trackpad, where we can do different speeds, how things are just sort of the mechanics behind their motion can all be adjusted here from speed to just how far you actually have to move before something that is what they call spring loaded in its animation kind of moves. But then we can come down here and go to our trackpad options, and this is where we can come over here and change how fast something scrolls. So right now I have it set it as fast as we can, so it's really just a really simple motion that gets me all the way up to the bottom of the page. But if you're somebody who you want to sort of keep up with the sort of the information that's scrolling by, we can move it back slow and set it so that I'm doing 3 times as much motion as I did for it to quickly scroll to the bottom, and it just kind of changes the speed in which that goes. You can also turn off inertia so that when I scroll across it, it just stops instead of having that as if it were kind of carrying its motion all the way through. Are 2 different things you can change here from accessibility. But to go even further into it, if we head back into our normal preferences menu and head into trackpad for this example, all along the top here we have a couple different sections, and all of these areas are different functions and different settings that we can change for the trackpad. You can change it to tap to click so that you don't have to push all the way down and get the button movement, just sort of lightly tapping on the trackpad will actually select things. If you're coming from the Windows world and you really like that whole right click feature, you can turn that on any different Apple input device, whether it's a trackpad or it's a mouse, so that we then get the right hand menu that a lot of people are used to seeing. And then all sorts of other just tracking speed, so how fast the cursor moves across the screen. If that moves too fast for us to keep up with it, we can move it down to the other end, and it's easier to keep up with that cursor visually, so that can be changed to your own specific liking. But this is just an area I would really suggest anybody kind of come into and play around with. One of the nice things here is if you hover over any one of these, you get to see the actual motion happening in the little video on the right, and then you can toggle it on and off. So it's a nice little area where you can kind of learn new features that might help you in your everyday life, might be solutions to things that you find very irritating and frustrating. So check out system preferences, check out your mouse settings or your trackpad settings in here. And so in our last couple of minutes, we've talked about a whole bunch of different accessibility features. Now, it really goes a lot deeper than that. If you feel like, especially all of our special ed teachers out there, that we got to give you a little taste of this here, and you're wondering if this can go even deeper for your students, contact us. We'd be happy to do a Google Hangout with your team, maybe if it's a team across the district, or have you come in here, or meet you at one of your buildings and kind of really dig into some of the solutions that this accessibility section offers. Let us know. You can email us at tech25@st25.org or at our individual emails for the district, because we really did go through a lot, and it can do a lot more. And this is all Mac stuff that we were talking about here, but really quickly I want to jump into a mobile device, because it has just as many rich features on there as well. So I'm going to jump into the iPad here. And so in our settings on the iPad, under General, on our right-hand menu that pops up here, we get our accessibility section. And if we tap there, we get a whole menu just filled with stuff, similar with the zoom features. And as you go into each of these categories, it really gets even deeper in terms of the settings, whether it's speed or actually kind of a cool thing too is if we scroll down to the bottom, the nice thing with the mobile devices, it really incorporates outside assistive devices. So hearing aids, you can actually pair a hearing aid, if it's enabled with the Bluetooth capabilities, to the iPad, so that the sound going on the videos and things on the iPad will play directly into the hearing aid that it gets paired with. Things like that are available here on the mobile side of it.
Well, and too, we had a discussion recently with some people from Apple about these, and just as you're scrolling through those, you could see that they really cover everything from not only visual and audio things, but also severe limited mobility. People who don't have access to moving their hands, there's the switch control where they can actually use the camera and their head motions to control the device. They have tremor control, so people who may have a tremor in their hand, the device will know, is it an intentional touch on the iPad, or is it something that was maybe inadvertent? So you can see in the interaction that they have touch accommodations, they have the assistive touch. All of those really extend the range from just everyday use all the way up to people who have some more severe limitations or needs can be addressed.
Absolutely. And I would actually almost even say that the mobile devices is where they're really taking off with all of this accessibility. The Mac side has a ton of stuff, but they really have the ability to get creative with the mobile devices, and there is quite a bit you can do on the mobile side here. So yeah, that's mobile device. I'm going to jump back over. Just one other. So we were talking, about accessibility, which works very well for anybody, with, like we were saying, sort of limitations or specific needs. One of the other things that is really cool, that's just an Apple thing, it's a Google Docs thing, and we've talked about this before, but I really like this feature. So if I open up a document, and so this sort of, I guess, accessibility has more to do with language barrier than anything else, where you can open up a document, jump up here to Tools, where, by the way, I would like just to draw our attention quickly to voice typing, which is dictation within Google as well. But right below that is our translate document. So if I hit that, translate this particular document, we're going to, just call it relation. We can come down here to a pretty extensive list of different languages that it can be changed out to. And we'll just go to Arabic since it's here towards the top. And I can translate that. what it's going to go here ahead and do is make a whole copy. So you'll have your original document, but it'll create a whole second copy of your document in that language, where you can then share it and do whatever you like with it from there. So kind of a cool little feature for any language barrier challenges that we have, whether it's with parents or students and things like that. Google is set up to kind of help us out through that as well.
Can I show one last one?
Absolutely.
Little bonus, you inspired me and you reminded me of one that I think is great. So if we go back to this Constitution document, I'm just going to copy this whole thing, because not only there may be language restrictions, but sometimes it's just the length. And let's say you have a reader and you want them to digest a lot of information. So this Constitution's a long piece. One of the other areas that I think is really interesting is the idea that, and just to show again, you can have it start speaking down here again, as we talked about if you had the reader. But what I'm really looking for is the summarize feature, which if I take this text and used to be here, it's going to be a bad way to end the show if it doesn't show up. But there is a way, and I'm going to look it up while Tim's going to wrap this up. You can actually have it summarize the entire text, and it will pick out the key pieces of this long text. And so before we go here, I'm going to try to show it to you because it is an interesting piece. I shouldn't have thrown it in at the end without kind of looking at it first, but it really has a nice option that really breaks it down, and it's amazing how the computer looks at each document and can pull out the key sentences or phrases in that document. So if we don't get it up right now, we will look at it later.
We might have to turn something on.
Yeah, I think there's something in the keyboard shortcuts, which I should have done. But you know what? We'll take a look at that later. But if you're interested in that, let us know, and we can show you where you can plug that in the shortcut area.
I think this really is just an example of how deep all these features go, and the fact of having to kind of know where to find it. So I just want to stress again, if you have sort of a solution or a problem that you want to find a solution for, and you might now think that the technology will make it possible, please partner with us, and we will, find however way to communicate and to get together, brainstorm, and figure out just a way to kind of make that happen. So as we can see, and our little checkbox in the endless list there was turned off.
And you make a great point, because this is buried, and I even forgot it was in there. But once you turn that on, then I don't know if I shouldn't have to look at this. There it is. So now what the summarize does is it will give you a window of the text that you had either selected or the document, and you can say how much of that do you want to summarize. That's obviously the full length, but I could break this down into just a couple sentences that kind of highlight. And again, if you take the time to read this, it's sometimes pretty scary about how good it does about just pulling out some of the main points and some of the key features that again can help a reader who just will not read this long text. It's intimidating, it's frustrating. You can start to summarize and get some of the key points out of it for that.
And almost like summarize and then build back up.
And then build back up, absolutely. Or at least have the discussion kind of jump off that main page. So we appreciate your patience on that, but you can see real-time live.
A little troubleshooting,
keyboard shortcutting, figuring it all out.
And that's how we like to do it here at 25 with Tech 25, figuring out on the spot. But again, I'll throw this up here as we're saying goodbye, but just let us know if you have any further questions about this, want to explore this more. There's some really amazing stuff. I would say that truly this is the amazing side of technology, being able to all sorts of, a huge range of abilities and different ways of experiencing the world. We can make it happen for those people through this technology. So let us know. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Welcome to 2016.
Welcome to 2016.
Hope everyone has a great year.
Yeah, I hope so. See you later.
Take care.